Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Anakin, and welcome to today's video for Legends of Runeterra. We got a lot to talk about today, so let's get right into it. We got a balance patch coming out tomorrow, patch 3.4.0, 33 card changes. They're actually adding 3 new cards as well, so like I'm saying, there's actually a lot to talk about. So let's get into it. Starting off, patch 3.40. New cards. We're experimenting with a new approach to live balance this patch. In addition to the usual card updates, we've taken a holistic look at gameplay patterns that aren't easily or quickly addressable by changing existing cards, so instead we're adding a few new cards. I like this. I hope this means that in the future, when we get balance patches, they might add in a card or 2 as well. So, maybe not 3 like we're getting now, but, there'll be like, let's assume like in the next balance patch, maybe they'll add in 1 new card for a weak region. Let's say like Freljord's looking a little weak, and they add in a card, like a Freljord card that tries to help out Freljord and help out its weaknesses. So what else are they saying? This patch, we took a look at regions that lack core tools to deal with wide boards, as well as elusives, leading to one-sided matchups against that archetype. And we've created a new spell card for each of them to help shore up that weakness: PNZ, Targon, and Shurima. So first off, the Shurima card. Desert Duel is a 3-mana slow spell. Give an enemy -2/-0 this round. An ally and that enemy strike each other, so they fight. Single combat. While we have some other changes in this patch to help Shurima handle multiple enemies, Shurima has always been reliant on Vulnerable to address single targets. That's a strong game plan when you attack, but we felt they needed a tool that could also work on defense rounds. That is true. Shurima always felt like its secondary region was more of the removal side of things, if you wanted to play that much removal in your deck. So, things like single combats, mystic shots, etc., depending on what your secondary region was. Do I like Desert Duel? It's fine. I look at Desert Duel and I'm like, okay, so it's a slow speed single combat. I hate slow speed cards, but it does shrink the enemy unit, so that is nice. And it does synergize with some cards that are in Shurima. On the top of my head, it synergizes with Renekton to help level him up, also with Severe to help level her up, and Action too to help level him up. Basically break open the Warlord's castle? But is this a good card? I don't know. Like, Severe Action already is playing Demacia, so they're already playing single combat. I feel like I'd rather just play single combat over this in anything, in any deck. So I don't know about the card. I look at this card like Winds of War, the healing slow speed single combat from Demacia, and I'm like, Winds of War is kind of underrated in my opinion, but it's not that good. So it is nice. It means you don't have to, it's really not meant for the Severe Action deck in my opinion. It's really just meant for decks that are not playing Demacia and its secondary region just doesn't have good removal spells. Great for Mono Shurima. I will say that Mono Shurima probably loves this card, so oh boy for them. Next card up, we got a Targon card, Celestial Wonder. 5 mana fast spell, stun 2 enemies. I don't like it. Targon is great at creating large single threats. Very true. But can struggle with wider boards. Very true. That's always been one of Targon's weaknesses. I've played a lot of Targon. I can attest to that. While we don't want to change that identity entirely, we did want to give them an option for slowing down multiple attackers so that slower game plan has a chance. Okay. I look at this card and I think to myself, it's meh. Before you say, oh wow, it's Targon Yasuo. Yasuo's a bad deck. Look, I love Yasuo. Yasuo kind of just sucks in all honesty. I look at this card and I think to myself like, okay, Event Horizon, Veigar's champ spell. And I compare it to that. I like Event Horizon more than I feel like the average person does. I've actually played Event Horizon in main deck Event Horizon in non-Yasuo decks. Like as a 1 or even a 2 of in my in some Shellfolk decks, because I like the card that much. especially because like against go wide decks, you can play it in response to a Yordle in arms, and it kind of stuns the whole board in theory, which is really cool. I think Event Horizon is better, and you very rarely see Event Horizon. I will say this though, because it is Targon, you can play it with Leona Yasuo, and Leona Yasuo is a very fringe deck, so maybe that's a thing, but I'm not too excited by this card. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing here. I've seen a lot of people liking this card, but I just don't like it. I'm not a big fan of it. Maybe as a one of, but I feel like there's better things I'd rather play. But if I really want a stun, I guess I can play this, but I'm not too excited to play it. Next card, Rocket Barrage. It's the PNZ spell. 5 mana, slow spell. Okay, another slow spell. I don't really like removal being slow, but sure. What's it do, though? Deal 3 to an enemy and 1 to all other enemies. So it's kind of like a main deckable Jinx Rocket, except it does a little less damage. I guess you don't have to go Nexus with the 3. You can. Like, that 3 can hit Nexus. It says deal 3 to an enemy, so I assume it can hit Nexus. So you can hit, like, the biggest thing they have, or anything that dies, and then it deals 1 to everything else, so that's cute. So what are they saying here? Dark damage is meant to be a strength of PNZ. And while that was definitely the case for single targets, their AoE options were not living up to that dream. Rocket Barrage should help PNZ as a strong option to look towards when you want to be sure your deck can deal with a horde of little aggressors. Similar to the Shurima card, I feel like your secondary region is usually the region you use if you want to deal with AoE. Things like Shadow Isle for Withering Whale, Box, Freljord gives you Avalanche, and Blighted Ravine, so I don't know. I guess it might be nice in like a PNZ Vandal City deck, like a control deck, like Shellfolk maybe? Would I want to play this main deck? I don't know. It just feels like it's 1 mana too expensive, like 5 mana slow spell to deal 3 and 1 to all enemies. It just feels a little too expensive. Honestly, I don't even think it would be that strong at 4 mana slow speed to deal 3 to an enemy and 1 to all enemies. You might say, like, wouldn't that compete with Aftershock? I don't think so. Aftershock is 4 mana slow speed, deal 3 to something. But in exchange, you can destroy a landmark. This would basically be, say, like, you could play Aftershock if you want to destroy landmarks, or play Rocket Barrage if you want to deal 1 to everything. I don't know, though. Maybe I'm wrong here. I always underestimate removal because I like removal to be good, and I'm biased, and I like it to be good, so I don't know. I don't like it that much, but burn decks, like, this could be more decimates. Like, that is actually close to a decimate. 5 mana to deal 3 to an enemy, while decimate is 5 mana, deal 4 to the enemy nexus. This is just 1 damage off of decimate, so PNZ Noxus Burn could see some play in that deck. Next up, though, we got changes, card updates, balance changes. So real quick, as mentioned in the new card section, we wanted to make sure that every champ or every region had some tools to deal with the threats they might face. We also wanted to help out a couple of underutilized champs and give some gentle adjustments to some of the decks that have been leading the metagame for a long time. That being said, there are a few cards that are not being updated yet that we want to provide some extra context on. Yordle Arms and Bandletree, basically, are not getting changed, sadly. Those are 2 cards I really wanted to see get nerfed, and they're not. Yordle Arms, we work on these patches several weeks in advance, and we worked on this one earlier than usual due to our week out. Yordle Arms wasn't seeing nearly as much play when these changes were locked, but we're watching it now. I really want to know when these changes were locked, because it feels like forever since Yordle Arms was seeing play, but whatever. The new removal cards being added along with the other changes this patch should have an effect on Yordle Arms' efficacy as well, but we're keeping an eye on it. I feel like I've already looked at these balance changes, and I'll be honest with you, I feel like Yordle Arms is still going to be one of the best decks in the format. Bandletree, we have changes planned for the Bandletree to alleviate the lack of interactivity in its win con, but the changes are more complex to implement, so we have that targeted for our next balance patch on the 27th of April. Mostly that just makes me curious about how they're going to change it, because it doesn't feel like they're going to just simply change the mana cost, and it feels like they might do what I would like to see them do and change the actual win con, which will be nice if they do it. So let's go into the actual balance changes themselves. First off, my boy, my son, my child, Aphelios. I love him. I love him so much. He's gotten a buff. You'll love to see it. Aphelios. Same. The guy himself, still the same. 3 mana, 3/3. Nightfall to get a moon weapon. Moon weapons are now 2 mana again. And that means Gifts is also 2 mana as well. That's great. That's huge. This is such a big jump. Before I talk more about Aphelios, they've also reworked Crescendum, which is something I said I would like to see if they did buff Aphelios. I'm glad they did it. I don't know how much I like or hate the change. I like it, I guess, I think, but I don't know if I actually like it. Because it might be a little too RNG, but it's fine. Crescendum now, though, instead of doing what it used to do, where it summoned a 2-cost follower from your deck, now it just summons a random 2-cost follower from your regions. So very RNG. It's like, some people have even been saying like, oh, so it's like a piloted Shredder from Hearthstone. And I'm like, I can see that. Yeah, I see it. But I like this. Mostly because like Aphelios is one of my favorite champions, and I miss playing Aphelios a lot. I played a little bit of Aphelios because Aphelios Lux has felt okay, but this feels really, really nice. The biggest thing about this change, though, that I like is that now you can play Lunari Duskbringer, the 1 mana 2/1, on turn 1. Turn 2, bank the mana, and then turn 3, you play Duskpetal Dust, the card from Lunari Duskbringer, and then you can summon Aphelios for 2 mana, and with the 2 mana you have left over, you can actually play a Moon Weapon. That was one of the strengths of Aphelios when he was at his peak power, because you would do that kind of play. You would do that like turn 1, Lunari Duskbringer, turn 2, pass, turn 3, Aphelios Crescendum, and since you were in Bilgewater, your 2-drop was Boxtopus. And you would summon a 3/4. So that means by turn 3, you had summoned a 1 mana 2/1, Aphelios, and a 3/4 Boxtopus, which was nuts. This is not going to be as strong, like you're not, unless you high roll and summon something like a Boxtopus, which is a possibility with Crescendum if you're in Bilgewater. But it's still pretty solid. Next up, though, what do we have? Azir. Oh boy. So now Azir counts landmarks alongside units for his level up condition. Azir's love of units and Shurima's love of landmarks led to some internal strife, especially in Shurima only strategies. This change should help Azir players feel better about their board no matter how they're filling it. I've seen some people say like, oh boy, Azir Aurelia. I don't think Azir Aurelia cares too much about this. Like, sure, Emperor's Dais is pretty much their only landmark, which isn't terrible. It is helping out Azir, but I don't like this that much for Azir Aurelia. Now, Sundisk, though, summons a lot of landmarks, and Sundisk always did kind of struggle to level up Azir quickly. So I'm kind of liking this for Sundisk alongside some of the other Shurima stuff. The strike spell as well is also pretty great for Sundisk, so let's go Sundisk. Next up, though, what do we have? Gnar, small Gnar nerf. Kind of wish they had nerfed him a little harder, but it's fine. They don't seem to want to kill the card. He is a new card too, so that's fine. Not much to talk about here. Gnar is now a 3/3 instead of a 4/3. Gnar is still fine. In my opinion, this doesn't really change much about Gnar. I think Gnar is still going to be solid. I guess there are some 3/4s, 4/3, and even 4 that Gnar can't attack into, but that's still fine, I think. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is just, feels mostly like a slap on the wrist, but it does matter in some cases, so it does actually do something So what are they saying? You may have seen Gnar around Runeterra occasionally recently. Gee, I wonder. And while we're happy to see a newly released champ succeed, Udir says hello, there can be too much of a good thing. We wanted to make a smaller change to tone him back without making him completely un-mega. I mean, they did. Like, this does affect him, but very, very slightly. I hate this change. Pantheon. Pantheon lost 1 attack. That's it. He went from a 4-2 to a 3-2. This change does nothing. The stat line on Pantheon barely matters, in all honesty. Like, I guess, yeah, not being a 5-3 right away when you summon him does kind of matter, but that doesn't do much. So, I don't know. I feel like there were better ways to nerf Pantheon. Remove the overwhelm, maybe remove the barrier, make it so he needs to target 6 allies in 6 different rounds to level up. I don't know. I feel like any of those would have been better ways to nerf Pantheon. This doesn't even feel like a nerf, in all honesty. Like, it's objectively a nerf by definition, but it barely feels like a nerf. So I'm not a fan of this. What do we have next? Pike? I don't get this one too much. There's a couple of Lurk nerfs that I just don't understand. Like, why are they nerfing Lurk? Lurk is not a top tier deck. And granted, like, they have a reason here. First off, Pike is losing 1 attack. He's now a 1-3, which is not a big nerf, but it's still a nerf. Lurkers have been a consistent force for a good bit of time now, and while they aren't completely dominant, we think that taking a few teeth off the sharks could let other decks shine more. You can see the Xur'sai Dunebreaker change further along in the patch notes as another example. Like, did they really nerf Lurk just because it's been consistently solid for a bit? Which, that's not incorrect. Lurk's always been that, like, yeah, it's not the best deck, but it's always like, it's a solid, like, mid-tier 2 deck that's fine. Relatively easy to pick up. So yeah, I don't know. I really don't think Bilgewater needed a nerf. Bilgewater doesn't feel that great outside of a couple of cards, and feels like feels bad to see Bilgewater getting nerfed some more. Next up, Rumble, and a lot of these changes, the 33 promised changes, seem to be taken up by these Mecha Yordles. But yeah, Rumble got a buff. Now Rumble will Rumble's level up is tied to not him dealing the 12 plus damage, but Mecha Yordles dealing 12 plus damage. That barely changes anything, in all honesty. Let's see what they're saying. While Rumble has been having some success on his own, his Mecha Yordle friends have spent most of their time on the scrap heap. We're giving several of the weaker mechs a tune-up and making sure Rumble plays more nicely with his Mecha Yordle pals. So all of these Mecha Yordle changes are just stat changes, and it's like, yeah, 5-3 to 6-3, 5-6 to 6-6, 0-4 to 0-5, 4-5 to 5-5, 3-2 to 3-3. That one, actually, the Fury Horn going to 3-3 is actually kind of big. But everything else, it's like, did Dune Hopper mech being a 5-6 really matter? Did Trumpetecker being a 4-5 really matter? I don't think so. Salty Spinner just sucks because most of the time your deck's not really built to take advantage of Salty Spinner. To a lesser extent, same with Little Dipper. Little Dipper is like a strong card, but you kind of have to build your deck for a card like Little Dipper, and it's kind of hard to build a deck around Little Dipper when you're not even guaranteed to find a Little Dipper in a game. So yeah, like, my opinion on Mecha Yordles, I think the biggest problem with Mecha Yordles is they're just really slow, and if you were to slow down the meta somehow, Mecha Yordles would be solid. And Rumble was already good. Like, Rumble Draven was a solid deck, and while that deck wasn't really caring about Mecha Yordles, it mostly just used Rumble as a 4-mana 5-4 with Spell Shield and other stats. Occasionally the Mecha Yordles would come into play. This is kind of a buff for Fizz Lulu. Fizz Lulu Yordle Arms does play 1 to 2 scrap heaps in their deck, mostly as a 1-mana way to discard cards. So, yeah. All right, Victor. Victor is now what is it? Victor now, his hex score upgrade now costs 0. I like it. That's actually kind of big. Kind of sucks that the, the synergy with a leveled up Victor making the hex score upgrade 0 is gone, but it's still fine. I don't know, is this enough though to make Victor playable? Every time I've seen Victor, I've always been like, I'd rather kind of just play Vi or Ezreal in the deck. I've seen some people saying like, oh, Victor Aphelios, and I'm kind of liking that. I kind of like the idea of Victor Aphelios. PNZ has some pretty good 2-drops to pull from for Crescendum too, so combine PNZ's solid removal with Targon's healing and Celestial late game plan. I kind of like that idea. So I'm gonna try that out, but I still don't think Victor's gonna be that great, but I like that they're buffing him. Anyway, that's it for champions. Like they said, not that many champion changes. It feels like a lot of champs are just going to be changed or reworked or buffed and nerfed in the upcoming champion patch, champion rework patch. I hope it's not just reworks. I hope in the champion rework patch, they also just buff and nerf some champs as well. Cause like, I don't know, maybe Gnar or something gets another nerf or whatever. But yeah, I hope so. I hope there's some good changes in that upcoming champion rework patch. Anyway, next up, what do we have? Follower spells and landmarks. We already heard about this. Xerxai Dunebreaker is now a 3/5. It's not much of a change here. I'd rather, for the mid-game to late-game lurkers, I'd rather see Zerzureth nerf, because I feel like Zerzureth is a little more annoying, but it's fine. It's nothing big here, nothing much to talk about. Losing 1 health is annoying, but going from 6 to 5 health doesn't change much, in my opinion. Catalyzer nerf. Looks like they nerfed Darkness as well. I don't think this changes much either. Catalyzer is now a 2/2. Sure, it can't block Fearsome, but that's fine. All you really cared about with Catalyzer was getting the first strike off with it, so yeah. Kind of glad they didn't make it 3/1. I feel like 3/1 would have been how they would have just killed the card, making it die to things like Pokestick, Vile Feast, etc., etc. Because against some decks, it's actually hard for this to even strike once. And yeah, I think it's fine. Makes it a little awkward in the 2-mana 2/3s, but there aren't that many 2-mana 2/3s out there, so it's nice. Most of the time, this guy just traded anyway with a unit, so it doesn't really change much. Next up, Vanguard Sergeant. Looks like they unbuffed him. Vanguard Sergeant is now a 3/3 again instead of a 3/4. You might say like, oh wow, when Vanguard Sergeant was a 3/3, no one played Vanguard Sergeant. Yes. What are they saying here? While we were glad to see Vanguard Sergeant become more of a general use tool for Demacia, access to a well-statted body and for Demacia was just too good of a deal for the Scout deck. We're turning this one back, but we're going to look at more changes to Elites in a future patch. Just make Elites more synergistic. Please? But yeah, I don't know about this one. I think a lot of decks are going to keep playing Vanguard Sergeant. Scouts, I think, will still play Vanguard Sergeant because they have Duran Sculptor in the deck to just buff up Sergeant. Duran Sculptor actually was one of the reasons why I think Vanguard Sergeant might have been nerfed. Turn 2 Sculptor, turn 3 Sergeant was backbreaking for a lot of decks. Having to deal with a 3-mana 3/5 on turn 3 was just nuts. And I think some decks like Lux decks will still play 2 Sergeants at the very least, because For Demacia is a solid spell, and people have realized that For Demacia is really strong in the right meta. So I like this card still. I think it's still solid, but it's not as great in combat, which is the 3/4 stat line was really, really good. Next up, what do we have here? Yeah. Conchologist and Telescope have been nerfed. Love these nerfs. I love that they were nerfed. I don't know if I love these nerfs. Conchologist is a 2/1. Would have rather preferred a 1/2, but 2/1's fine. Telescope is now a 3-mana 2/2. Telescope feels gutted, but I feel like there are still going to be some decks I play Telescope in, but I don't know, though. If I'm in a more value-oriented deck and I'm playing Targon, I feel like Solari Priestess and even Lunari Priestess are a little bit better, but I'm not sure about that. And then in Vandal City decks, I would not play this in a more mid-game deck unless you really, really, really need more units that are cheap. But maybe for a what's it called? Maybe for a Shellfolk deck, I'd still play Telescope. Conchologist I still think is great, and I think I'll still play like 2 to 3 Conchologists in a lot of my Vandal City decks, because sure, it dies to pings now, but the spell it manifests is usually really, really good. Not saying much here. It just says while Vandal City is meant to be good at manifesting answers, these two were doing so at a remarkably efficient rate. Very true. Next up, Paddle Star. I don't even get this buff. This buff doesn't really do anything. It now deals 5 instead of 4 damage. So what? I don't get it. Like, what is their reasoning here? Target is meant to be good at handling single threats slowly, regardless of size. Battlestar was certainly nailing the slowly part, but was falling short against larger threats. I mean, this doesn't change much. And for the people who actually cared about larger threats as a target player, you usually just played Sunburst, I think. I think that's a 6 mana Daybreak card that deals 6. Most people just play that. I want to say, like, as long as this card's been in the game, I think I've seen this card get played maybe once. And I don't mean like off of a Zoe or from a Sleepy Trouble Bubble. I mean actual Paddle Star in someone's deck. I think I've seen it played once. Because most people I've seen who actually play Paddle Star, most Paddle Stars I've seen played are either manifested from Conchologist or created from a Sleepy Trouble Bubble that was really just a second Zoe. So I guess you could technically argue it's a Zoe buff, but yeah, I'm not too excited about this. Really, the problem with Paddle Star is slow speed, and it has a condition attached to it in that the unit has to be stunned or has to have attacked that round. So yeah, I'm not a fan of Paddle Star. This buff doesn't change much for me. Now this one though, this buff is huge. Quicksand now has a second mode. So you can still do the give an enemy -4/-0 and remove its keywords for the round. Positive keywords for the round. Or you can choose its second mode, which is basically the same thing, but now you choose 2 enemies to give them -2/-0 and then remove their positive keywords. That's huge. So when this card first came out, Quicksand, a lot of people looked at this card and were like, wow, is this just Hush, but better? And some people actually thought this Quicksand was better Hush. Turned out it wasn't better Hush, because silencing a unit was just better than removing their keywords, because you could silence units that had strong text boxes but not strong keywords, like Karma or Lee Sin. But now being able to target 2 units, and while Quicksand is still worse Hush in my opinion, being able to target 2 units with what is basically worse Hush is still really, really good. There's a card called Moonlight Affliction. You probably don't see it too often. But Moonlight Affliction is the 5 mana burst speed target spell. It basically says 5 mana silence, basically 5 mana hush 2 enemy units. And if you Nightfall it, they can't block for the round. Some people would actually play that card, not because they liked the card or was good, but because they wanted the strength of double Hush. And yeah, I kind of like this card. Now, granted, like the last time I saw that card get played and it wasn't randomly generated, like people were main decking Moonlight Affliction, was when Nasus was around. So I'm not sure if this double Hush, the new Quicksand, is actually that good, but I think it's solid. Again, Mono Shurima probably likes this. I don't think Severe Action would play this. Echo Zillion might play this though. So I think there are some decks that like this change. Next up, big buff here. She Who Wanders hits all units now. Used to be she doesn't hit champions and only hits followers. Now she hits champions as well. This is the way she used to be back when the game first came out and was in beta. And she was played as a 3-of in a lot of decks. And then she got nerfed a lot. And now she's back to her full power, it seems. I'm scared of this card. Not because I think like ramping into She Who Wanders is going to be the way to go, but scared of decks that are going to be playing Targon's Peak, because a really early She Who Wanders can just end games. So I'm scared of this, but hopefully it won't be too good, but maybe it will be. Who knows? Next up, what do we have? Sheriff Lariat Rose. I don't know why they're buffing this card. I think this is the second time they're buffing Sheriff Lariat Rose. She's now a 7/6 instead of a 6/5. It really feels like they're trying to make Sheriff Lariat Rose the 6-mana Cythria of Bilgewater. I don't really see this, like, giving... It is a permanent debuff, like, they are... That vulnerable is on the units all the time, but... Bilgewater doesn't really do that great in combat. Like, they don't have quick attack, they don't have tough, I don't know. So what are they saying about the Sheriff? The Sheriff has a strong effect when she enters play, yes, but was often unable to lay down the law effectively on her own. With a few extra stats, we think she'll be a more effective answer for Bilgewater decks looking to answer larger units. So is it... Are you supposed to put Sheriff Lariat Rose in your deck if you want to have an answer to a big unit? I feel like you'd rather play Monster Harpoon, even though it got nerfed, but I don't know. Maybe, but I think I've only seen this card like once or twice since it got released, but maybe it'll be good now, but I don't think another +1/+1 stat boost will help it. 7/6 is a lot of stats though. Like 7/6 for 6 is a lot of stats. I actually don't even know if there's a unit that's bigger than Sheriff Lariat Rose for 6 mana. There might be, there probably is, but I can't think of it. Nasus, I guess, if you want to cheat. Next up, some combat trick changes here, it seems. Sharp Sight now only gives +1/+2. Twin gives +2/+0 or +0/+3. They broke up the mirror effect of Twin, and then they made a really bad joke and said, like, they're now fraternal twins. Ha ha ha. But yeah, these changes don't do much here for these spells. Like, Sharp Sight was mostly played for the health boost to keep your units alive for most decks that were playing Sharp Sight, both mid-range decks and control decks. Control decks don't care too much about the Sharp Sight change. They're just still going to play 3 Sharp Sights. And I feel like more mid-rangey decks like like Scouts are still going to play 3 Sharp Sights because 2 health is what they care about to protect units like Misfortune. Twin still gives 3 health. Twin giving 3 health for 2 mana was the biggest issue with Twin, and it still gives 3 health. Giving less attack is annoying for things like Ahri, I guess, and quick attack units, but whatever. And I guess like Irelia for the few players who still play Irelia, but it's still a fine card. It's still strong. Honestly, I mentioned this earlier. I kind of want to know like how often, like the percent of time people pick the health side of Twin disciplines, because it feels like to me, just an arbitrary number, but it feels like to me 85% of the time it's the health side for Twin. But maybe I'm wrong on that one. Next up, J3. King J3 is now a 5/6 instead of a 3/6. Someone put it really good for me. Feels like this would be a good buff a year ago, back when this card came out. Now, this just feels weird. Like, why are they buffing this card? It's like, it's technically also a J4 buff, but I don't really see this helping out J4 decks. Like, the only J4 deck out there that would really play J3 is Shen J4, and Shen J4 has a lot of problems. Plus, it got 2 nerfs right there. So yeah, I'm not too excited about this J3 buff. Yeah. Tattered Banner. This here is interesting. So now Tattered Banner will no longer have it be consumed by challenger units. At first, when I read this, I thought this was a bug. I thought so in other words, if you play Tattered Banner and you play a challenger unit, Tattered Banner's effect will get used up by the challenger unit. You might say like, that's okay. Does that really matter? Yes, it did matter because of Scouts. You played Tattered Banner, you played Quinn. The Tattered Banner would actually go on Valor instead of Quinn. Like, I had a lot of players, like a lot of Scout players, actually play Tattered Banner into Quinn and then they'd emote at me and be like, why does my Quinn not have Challenger? So that's huge. Now that Quinn can get Scout. Like, sure, there are some Scout nerfs, but this is a big Scout buff that they're changing the effect, which in my honest opinion, I thought was always a bug, but it seems like it wasn't working as intended. Next up, though, what do we have? Sacred Protector, the Shen boat. Seems to still have the same ability, giving allies with barrier double attack, but now it has a play ability where it's basically a Bright Steel Protector. When you summon it, play it, give an ally barrier this round, so that's nice. Like, I don't think this is going to help out Shen decks enough, but it is cute. The problem I feel with this card is, at what point are there too many expensive cards in your deck? Sacred Protector, Bright Steel, and Bright Steel Formation, and maybe even J3 in a Shen J4 deck. That's a little too top heavy. So you're gonna have to make some cuts. Maybe like a 1 of Sacred Protector, a 1 of King J3, and a 1 of Bright Steel Protector or Bright Steel Formation. I don't like that. Feels a little too inconsistent, but whatever. Sigil of Malice is now a 3-mana card. Interesting. Reputation still makes it cost 1, which is cute. This alongside the new PNZ card is actually kind of scary. PNZ Noxus Burn is not really a popular deck, but it feels like a very, very fringe deck you'll run into like 1 out of every 30 games or so. And with the new PNZ card and buffing Sigil of Malice, Burn might come back. But then again, the Aphelios buff, aka basically Severum coming back into the meta, might be able to hold them back, but I don't know. This is scary, really. Mostly just it's scary because of burn decks, not because of any reputation decks. I mean, what reputation decks are there? Severe LeBlanc? They wouldn't, they're not that good. Ash LeBlanc, they're also not good and probably wouldn't even play this card anyway. So yeah. And if you don't, I don't know. And if you're not trying to burn your opponent or play Reputation, I don't see why you would ever play this over, say, Death Sand. Death Sand is just this, but better if you can't activate Reputation. So yeah, just play Death Sand. This one's actually pretty big. Calculated Creations now gives the unit you create +1/+1. 2/4 Ballistic Bot is pretty huge. Same with the +1/+1 buff to Neandroid. Even the Gearhead getting +1/+1 is actually pretty big. So yeah, this is a pretty big buff. I don't know if I'd play it. It doesn't really get... I don't know. I'm pretty sure it does not get affected by Shellfolk, so Shellfolk decks won't want this, because Shellfolk only gives you a second copy if the choices are random. Is why Shellfolk doesn't work with Aphelios. So I'm not too big of a fan of putting this in my deck, but some decks like to play this and create things like Ballistic Bots and Neandroids, and Neandroid is a very scary card. So I don't know, I'm a little scared of this. Next up, they've changed how Flash Bomb traps work now. Flash Bomb traps still do the same thing they used to, but now they get planted in the top 8 instead of the top 10. Makes the traps a little more consistent and scary, so Caitlyn buff. So Tri-Beam decks are probably liking this. Caitlyn Teemo likes this too, so nice for them. Not a big change, but just nice. Small little power increase for them. Careful Preparation. Went from 3 mana to 2 mana. I like this card. I really like this card. This card is gas, in my opinion, and gives so much value. But it always did feel a little too expensive, and as much as I love to dirtle around and play slower, grindier decks, I struggle to even play one of these in my decks. But now with the buff, I kind of like playing this in maybe like a Action Gnar Shellfolk list, or just Shurima decks in general, maybe like Echo Zillion, maybe even Mono Shurima. I like it. I really like this. What do we have next up, though? Cam for the Doubt is now a 6/5 instead of a 5/4, and only has to see you target 4 allies instead of 6 allies. Now, granted, this time it has to be... No, nothing. What was I trying to say? This time now, I don't think Cam 4 is good still. The stat line is nice. Like, going up to 5 health is really big, but here's the thing. What kind of deck will play Cam 4? A Pantheon deck. Between Saga Seeker, Wounded White Flame, and Pantheon, do you really need another unit? Not really. Like, maybe as a 1 or a 2 of, you can see I can see Cam 4 being played. It's kind of like a bad version of Pantheon, if that makes sense. But I'm not too excited about Cam 4. So, yeah. I don't know. And that's going to be it for the balance changes. So those are all the balance changes. Feels like Yordle and Arms is still going to be the strongest deck in my opinion. Pantheon is still solid. Demacia didn't really get nerfed that hard. Vanguard Sergeant got hit the hardest, and it doesn't feel like that big of a nerf. Aphelios buff feels huge, along with the Quicksand buff. Like, the Aphelios buff and the Quicksand buff feel like the two biggest changes in my opinion. Can't wait to play some Aphelios cards and Aphelios decks. But there's a little more, so let's go really quick over the last little bit. Mostly just skins and cosmetics, but there is a UI update here. They're adding some UI changes to basically Oracle Eye 2.0. So it's showing things for like how units die before they actually die, and how Nexus health will be removed. It looks nice, I guess, but I don't really care too much about it, so it's whatever. And then some champion skins. Shen skin, which, like, cool. It looks good, but Shen doesn't really see play much anymore, in all honesty. I think Shen Galio is probably the best Shen deck out there, and that's not even that good. A Kennen deck, or a Kennen skin, which is actually... It looks really cool, and it changes how Mark of the Storm looks too, so that's nice. The other ones I think are just artwork changes. Pantheon skin looks good. Like, they look good. They're good artwork. Galio skin looks great. The Swain skin looks amazing. Like, that level 1 Swain looks awesome. Level 2 Swain looks great too, but I like the Swain skin. It looks hot. Is that the right term? And then a new board. New board actually looks pretty sweet too. I'm probably not going to buy it though. I like the current board I have, but it does look really, really nice. So, you know, I'm sure some people love this board a lot and will be buying it day one. It does look really sweet. New Guardians, of course, just like infernal versions of Guardians we got already, like the Poro, little shark guy, our bird friend. New card back, just a fiery card back. It's kind of meh in all honesty. And then some bundles, of course. When we get new cosmetics, they always got to throw in the bundle. So, you know, you got your Inferno bundle, gives you the board, some of the Guardians, card back, the skin bundle if you want all of the skins. Deck bundle looks like a Shen Galio list, which, yeah, it's fine. And then a couple of other changes too, like Path of Champions loading screen updates. Sure, whatever. Revised the description of Yumi's level 2 ability, which is whatever. Fix some crashes. Pantheon can now complete Call of Destiny and Cuddle Buddies challenges. I guess those are quests. Some text descriptions have been updated. So yeah. But yeah, that seems like it. That's all gonna be all for the video today. Fairly long video, but it was a big balance patch. Like I said, 33 changes. That's going to be it, though, for today's video. I hope you liked it. I'm looking forward to the balance patch. I wish there was just a little more. Like, it leaves me wanting, mostly. Like, I really, really like the Aphelios balance change, though. The Aphelios buff is huge, and what makes me actually excited to play this upcoming patch. And the Sun Disc, like Shurima buffs as well, to maybe make Sundisk somewhat viable, feels great too, so I like it. And I can't wait to play some Sundisk and Aphelios and more decks, like Victor decks too. I'd love to hear your opinion though on this. Do you think maybe it's not a good enough patch? I'd love to hear what you think the meta will shape up into. I honestly think the meta will still just be Yordle and ARM decks in all honesty. But maybe you disagree. Maybe you think Aphelios will carve out a nice section of the meta. Maybe you think Shurima decks will get more popular. Leave a comment below telling me what you think. And if you guys just enjoyed the video in general, I'd love it if you could leave a like or a comment down below. Always helps me and the channel out. And if you guys want to keep up with the Legends of Runeterra content, you can always go and subscribe to the channel as well. Also, if you want to watch me play some Legends of Runeterra, you can go and check me out over on Twitch at twitch.tv/Zenaton, where I stream pretty much every single day. Anyway, though, with that all said and done, thank you all once more for watching this video, and until I see you guys in the next one, bye!